Okay, let's dive deep into acai today.
Mm.
Now, most people probably think, purple smoothie bowls, maybe a bit trendy. But the sources we looked at, they paint a picture of something much more serious, scientifically speaking.
Yeah?
It's quite different from just a food fad. Here's something wild right off the bat.
Huh.
Acai is, well, it's a total outlier as fruits go. Think about it. Most fruits are packed with sugar.
Mm.
Acai, for 100 grams of pulp, you're looking at around 5 grams of fat and only like 2 grams of sugar. It just flips the whole script on what a fruit is, nutritionally.
Exactly. And that very unique structure, that high-fat, low-sugar profile, that's actually key to its power, biochemically speaking.
Mm.
So our mission here is pretty clear. Let's quickly pull out the science you can actually use, what makes it work best in your body, and, this is crucial, what are the absolute mandatory clinical warnings?
Right, need to know stuff. And that first piece of actionable advice seems to be about how you even buy it. Apparently, the potency really hangs on how it's processed.
It absolutely does. Look, if you want the kind of effects researchers see in studies, the therapeutic effects, it has to be freeze-dried. That's lyophilized. Any other drying method, like spray drying, it just destroys too many of those valuable active compounds, the antioxidants. So you really need to look for freeze-dried or lyophilized on the label.
Okay, freeze-dried, got it. And assuming it is processed that way, the antioxidant power is, well, it sounds pretty huge.
Oh, it's immense. We're talking about an oxygen radical absorbance capacity, or RAC score, that some sources report as exceeding 70,000 per 100 grams of powder.
70,000. Wow, that's what, like 10 times what you'd find in something like grapes?
Roughly, yeah. It's a powerhouse.
So back to that fat content, though. You mentioned it's high in fat, oleic acid mostly. Is that just like extra calories, or does it do something else?
It's absolutely essential. It's not just nutritional filler. That oleic acid, an omega-9 fat, makes up over half the fat content. And this high-fat matrix acts like a built-in delivery system. Think about polyphenols, those active compounds we want. They're usually pretty tricky for our bodies to absorb properly from the gut. But in acai, they're naturally located with these fats. This co-localization significantly boosts how well they get absorbed through your intestinal wall.
Ah, okay, so the fat literally helps shuttle the good stuff in.
Precisely. And that leads to the recommendation. You should actually consume acai with additional healthy fats. Think avocado, nuts, olive oil. It maximizes the benefit you get.
That makes sense. So once these compounds are absorbed effectively, what are they actually doing in the body? What are the main health benefits linked to?
Okay, the research points to two major mechanisms of action. First one is vascular health. Acai polyphenols seem to significantly ramp up the production of something called endothelial nitric oxide, or ENO.
Nitric oxide. That promotes vasodilation, right? Widening of blood vessels.
Exactly, which is really key for heart health, blood pressure regulation, overall cardioprotection.
Okay, that's mechanism one. What's the second?
The second is powerful anti-inflammatory action. It seems to work in a couple of ways here. It inhibits COX-2 enzymes.
Which some anti-inflammatory drugs target, right?
Correct. And it also inhibits a sort of master inflammation switch in the body called nuclear factor kappa B, or NF-kappa B. So it's dampening that inflammatory response pathway directly.
And there was something specific about metabolic health, too, wasn't there? Something about fat cells.
Yes, very interesting finding. In lab studies where fat cells were put under inflammatory stress, adding a K extract actually prevented them from accumulating fat droplets as much. The reduction was significant, around 40% less fat deposit in those stressed cells. So it appears to be a potent metabolic modulator, helping protect against fat accumulation under inflammatory conditions.
Wow, okay. So with effects that strong, influencing inflammation, fat storage, blood vessels, this definitely isn't just food anymore. It's acting more like a bioactive compound, which inevitably brings us to warnings. And there's one that really jumped out as surprising.
Yes, this is probably the most critical one for people to know, and likely the least known. Acai products can potentially interfere with MRI scans, magnetic resonance imaging.
Interfere how? That sounds unexpected.
It does, but the science makes sense when you break it down. Acai naturally contains paramagnetic ions, specifically iron and manganese. When you consume acai, these ions concentrate in your digestive tract, and because they're paramagnetic, they basically act like a weak, unintentional contrast agent inside you. They alter the magnetic field slightly, which can mess with the signal and the contrast in the MRI images, particularly T1 and T2 weighted images. The machine gets confusing signals.
Okay, so it could potentially obscure something or create artifacts on the scan.
Potentially, yes. It introduces a variable the radiologists aren't expecting. So the clinical guidance is very clear on this. You absolutely must stop taking any egg care products 48 to 72 hours before you have an MRI scheduled.
2 to 3 days beforehand. Got it. That's a really important piece of timing. And speaking of things interfering with absorption, you mentioned iron earlier. There's another interaction there, right, with iron absorption.
Yes, another key point. Those same powerful polyphenols in Acai, they're also potent chelators. That means they bind to certain minerals. Specifically, they significantly reduce the absorption of non-heme iron. That's the iron you get from plant sources or from typical iron supplements.
How significant is the reduction?
Studies suggest it can reduce non-heme iron absorption by about 70%. That's a huge amount.
70%. Wow. So if someone's relying on iron supplements or maybe vegetarian sources of iron?
They need to be really careful with timing. You absolutely have to separate your Acai consumption from your iron supplement or your iron-rich plant-based meal. The recommendation is a window of 2 to 4 hours apart. Don't take them together. Let the iron get absorbed first or wait a few hours after Acai.
Okay, another crucial timing point. 2 to 4 hour separation for iron.
And just one final safety note related to processing again. Always, always use certified, commercially processed Acai. That means the freeze-dried powder we talked about or properly pasteurized purees. This is really important to minimize the risk, albeit small and commercially available products, of parasitic illness, specifically Chagas disease. The insect vector can contaminate raw, unprocessed juice near harvest.
Right, so commercial processing, especially pasteurization or freeze-drying, is a key safety step against that.
Absolutely mandatory for safety.
Okay, so wrapping this up, the big takeaway for you, the listener, seems to be this. Acai is potent. It's a real metabolic modulator. But you need to be strategic. Use the freeze-dried form for efficacy. Definitely consume it with some added healthy fat to boost absorption, and be really mindful of the timing around MRIs and iron intake.
Well summarized. And maybe one final thought to leave people with, something to explore further. The source material mentioned, Acai, contains plant sterols like B-sitosterol. Now, these are known to influence cholesterol metabolism, so it raises a really interesting and important question. How exactly does Acai interact with cholesterol-lowering drugs like statins? That interaction isn't fully mapped out yet and definitely warrants more targeted clinical research. It's an open question.